All right, I'm back, and the sun is down, so the lights had to come on. Let me wet my whistle, and we'll get into story number 2. Okay. It's freaking cold. I should have grabbed the jacket. Anyway, story number 2. This is something that still bothers me to this day, and I think by the end of the story you'll understand why. But this is a story about my neighbor. Let's call her Mrs. B. I don't want to use real names. So, this was when I was living with my family. Saturdays, every other Saturday my mom would have to work. She'd have to commute. And my sister would be doing her own thing. Me and my dad would spend, like, Saturday mornings hanging out, watching comics on TV, laughing our asses off. And my dad was always into looking at, like, the news online and classifieds. Always looking at old cars for sale, stuff like that. And he saw this classified one Saturday for an elderly woman who was in our area who needed a ride to the grocery store. She didn't have a license. Apparently, she moved from New York. She moved in with her sister. Her sister was sick, and she didn't drive. She needs, a ride to the grocery store. Okay. My dad reads this, and just, my dad's a very compassionate person. You know what I mean? He's very generous, and something clicked in his head, and he felt the need to take care of this woman. You know what I mean? You know what? This woman needs a ride. I'll give her a ride. I'm nice like that, So he calls her up, and it turns out she lives 2 houses down from us. It was meant to be. So my dad called her out. You talked to her. Hey, where do you live? And I live here. And oh man, we're 2 houses down. And and this is when we're relatively new to the area. We didn't know all the neighbors and stuff. So my dad figures, hey, I'll help her out and get to know her. It's good to know your neighbors, all that kind of stuff. So he meets her, a nice old woman. Oh, you're so generous. Thank you so much. I don't know what I'd do without you. And okay, fine. Takes her to the grocery store. Brings her home, again, just, shaking his hand. You're so nice. Thank you so much for that. Everything's cool. My dad comes home, feels very proud. He did a good deed. So he gets a call from her, again, like later in the week. Hey, I got to go to the store. Can you help me out? My dad thinks, oh, yeah, all right, sure, yeah, I'll help you out. And then it happened again, like 2-3 days later. Pretty soon, my dad realized that she doesn't need one ride to the store. She needs a consistent driver, okay, because she needs to get shit done all over town and even beyond town, okay? So about maybe 2-3 weeks into my dad helping her out, he has this talk with her. Look, I want to help you out and stuff, but it's a lot on gas. So, and then she's like, oh, no, don't worry. I'll pay for gas. I'll take care of it. So she filled up his tank, she gave him like $30 or $40 worth of gas, filled his tank. Hey, I just want to go here and here. That's fine. So my dad's like, all right, fine. If she's covering gas, I'll continue to help her out until she finds, something else. Now, apparently her sister has this brand new truck in the garage. It's like a brand new Ford 250 or something, like a sport package, like a $35,000 truck. It's got like 10 miles on it, okay? And the whole time this woman's telling us, hey, I'm going to get my license. She came from New York, so she wasn't used to driving. She always commuted, train, bus, whatever, who knows, public transport. And she's like, well, I want to get my license and stuff. I'm a little scared to drive. And this whole time, my dad's taking care of her. He's like, look, I'll show you how to drive. I'll teach you how to drive. It's not that intimidating, it's no big deal. And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to learn. Let's skip ahead 6 months, okay? 6 months my dad's been taking care of this woman. And it started off where she'd fill the tank for my dad. Like, hey, you drive me around, I'll give you gas. Down to like maybe my dad would give her a ride once a week or twice a week, and she'd throw him like $5 or $10 for gas, and it wasn't cutting. It wasn't cutting it. It wasn't paying for the gas my dad was using. So after like 6 months of this, my dad finally turns it over to me, and he says, look, at the time I wasn't doing jack shit. I'll be honest with you guys. I was sitting around the house, my thumb up my ass. I wasn't, I was on the computer, BS, and I had a job. It was a part-time job, so I had time. I had free time. My dad didn't. So at some point he's like, hey, look, can you help out Mrs. B? I don't really have the time anymore. I didn't realize it would be this long-term thing. And I said, you know what? Okay, that's fine. So I had a talk with her. My dad told her, hey, look, maybe my son will start doing this for you. Throw him a couple bucks, take care of him. He'll take you wherever you need. I figured, all right, fine, yeah. If I get gas money and maybe a couple bucks extra, and that's what it was. It was an agreement that she would pay for the gas, but also give me like, $5 every time I took her out, because I'd take her out for a couple hours. It wasn't like going to the store to grab some carrots. I mean, she'd go to the store, she'd have to go get cigarettes, she'd stop and get Chinese food. I mean, she was all over the place, because she needed to do all of her errands. She didn't have a car, or at least a car that she was willing to drive. So now I take over this responsibility. And at first, I felt great about myself. Hey, I'm doing a good thing. I'm helping this woman out. Now, I gave her rides at least once a week, okay, maybe twice a week in some occasions. At first, she took care of me, took care of my gas, and I was making like 10 or 15 bucks a week, okay, but I was doing a good deed, so that was fine. It wasn't like a full-time job or anything. It's just she was paying me for my time. As time went on, the money went down. And, not that it's any of my business, but I had many conversations with this woman. This woman had plenty of money. She had a job that was paying six figures, and I'm not going to say what it was exactly, but she was basically high up on the chain in a very, very large business. And she like basically worked from home. She did conference calls all the time through, her computer, FaceTime stuff. And so she was able to do her job out of the house while living with her sister. And she was taking care of her sister because her sister was very sick. And also, not that it's any of my business, but she inherited a shitload of money because I think it was her father passed away or something, and she got a bunch of money from that. And so she's very well off, is my point. And so now it's going from, giving me 10 or 15 bucks to take care of her to $5. And then all of a sudden it was just covering gas, and at some point, it was past doing a good deed for someone. I was being taken advantage of. You know what I mean? I had a very simple agreement. I wasn't asking for a bunch of money. I was just asking for my time. You know what I mean? It took a lot for me to go out in my car and take care of her and stuff. And, after a couple months, she got very demanding. It was no longer like, oh, in the beginning, you take her to the store and then she'd come out, she'd, grab you on the shoulder. Oh, thank you so much. I don't know what I'd do without you. This is great. I really appreciate it. But like as time went on, it went from that to eventually she'd give me a call like, hey, I got to go to the store. And I said, well, can I get like 25 minutes? I got to go now. I got to go right now. I got something I got to go get. I'm like, are you serious? She actually got very demanding. The reason I'm telling you this whole story is because after more than a year, probably closer to a year and a half, I'm getting very frustrated and very tired of taking care of this woman, Mrs. B. At this point, she's really taken advantage of me and my father. She has plenty of money to pay a professional driver. Okay, she can take a friggin' limo to the store every time she needed to go. But she didn't. She took advantage of our goodwill. And I was getting tired of it. And I wanted to tell her that, look, I just can't do it anymore. But for some reason, I was just too chicken shit. I don't know what it is. Sometimes people, and some of you guys out there aren't like this, but many of you are. There's situations as adults, okay, and even kids in some cases, where you want to say something, but you just don't. You know what I mean? Like you're maybe afraid of the consequences or afraid of being embarrassed. Some people just don't have that in them. Some people are just very blunt all the time. You know what I mean? And there's a time and place for everything, of course. But I don't know why I just couldn't tell her no. You know what I mean? I get pissed off because she'd be super demanding. Like I said, she'd start off very sweet and everything, and a couple months in, oh, I need a ride here. If I don't go today, I gotta blah, blah, blah. And I got a life. I got stuff to do. You're not paying me to do this anymore. You know what I mean? You're barely covering gas. And she's loaded. It's not like she doesn't have the money to give. She's completely loaded. All I'm asking is what's fair. So I'm getting very frustrated with her. And now, whenever I do something, I come home, my dad's like, oh, where were you? I'm like, oh, took care of Mrs. B. And he's like, oh, yeah, that friggin' witch. So at some point, I got a lot of, anger towards this woman. And by the way, this is not like a little frail old lady. She was built like a shit brick house, okay? She probably could have beat the shit out of me, to be honest. But anyway, that's besides the point. So where this story is leading is one day, my dad was talking to her on the phone. She called. I was upstairs or something. She called. She's like, oh, can Jeff take me to the store tomorrow? I got to do this, blah, 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 whatever. So my dad calls me down. I come downstairs. I'm like, what? He's like, oh, Mrs. B's on the phone. Can you take her tomorrow? I'm like, no, I can't. I'm trying to give my dad signal. It's like, no, I don't want to do it. And so he's like, oh, no, he's got something going on or whatever. I hear in the background. She's like, well, I really need a blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, oh, man, super pissed off at this woman. So my dad hangs up, puts the phone on the table, and he's like, what the hell's with her? When are you going to tell her that you can't do this anymore? And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with her. I try to do this and I try to do that, and she's ungrateful. And me and my father talked shit about her for a good 5 minutes. I mean, just ripped into her. Little did I know, my father didn't hang up the phone properly and hit number 1, so it beeped, but he never hung up the phone. So she's hearing everything that we're saying, okay? Just totally shitting on this woman. Verbally, not physically. And so I remember my mother, it was like the next day or 2 days later, my mother saw her in the store and she's like, "Oh, hey, Mrs. B, whatever." And she didn't even say anything. My mom, she was just fucking pissed, just pissed face. And mom's like, "What the hell was that?" She came home. I remember she came home and told us, like, "Oh, I saw, Mrs. B," and she was like really pissed off. She didn't even say hi to me. "What's going on? What'd you guys do?" And we had no idea. We were like shocked. So I remember calling her on the phone. I'm like, "Hey, is everything okay?" My mom said she saw you and you look like pretty upset and stuff. And all she kind of muttered, she's like, "I heard everything you said. It was on my that's what it was. It was the answer machine. My dad didn't talk to her, but it was all on the answer machine. She's like, "I heard everything you said about me on the answer machine." And then she hung up on me. And I'm like, "Oh, fuck." So, number one, I'm extremely, extremely embarrassed. And number two, I look like the asshole. And that bothered me, and it really ate at me. I remember talking to my dad about it, and I'm like, "That's bullshit. We took care of her for a year and a half, and she took advantage of us, and now we look like assholes. Fuck her." And I'm talking more shit about her. I just remember being so pissed off about it. And like a week went by, of course, no calls or anything. I manned up, and I walked over there, and I knocked on her door, and she answered the door, and I was very embarrassed. And I said, "Look," I said, "I am extremely sorry for what we said. I should have talked to you about how I felt in the situation, everything beforehand, and blah, blah, blah." And she didn't care. She didn't say like, "Oh, I understand," nothing like that. Just fucking, she's just like, just pissed off old lady face and slammed the door in my face. And I haven't talked to her since. So yeah, that was a really horrible experience in my life. By the way, she was lying the entire time. Her sister she was taking care of wasn't her sister. It was her lesbian lover. And eventually she passed away. God rest her soul. She was a wonderful woman, her sister. See, I still call her a sister because that's what I really believed, because that's what I was told for a year and a half. So right from the beginning, I was being lied to, and even after the fact, after everything ended like that, I heard all kinds of stories about her taking advantage of other people too. So not every old person's a sweet old person. You know what I mean? There's some rotten people, and rotten people age too. You can't help it, right? Anyway, I thought I'd share that story with you. I don't know why. I was thinking about it, and it was bugging me a little bit, so I felt the need to share it and get your opinions on it. I was wrong for talking shit about an old lady. Fine. I was wrong for talking shit about anyone, but honestly, she really got under my skin. You know what I mean? She really knew how to push my buttons, and the only reason I even knew her is because I was helping her out. The only reason me and my father had any communication with her was when she needed something. She never just called us over to say hi. She never made a phone, "Hey, how you doing today?" Never asked how we were doing. It was always just about her. Very, very selfish lady. You know what I mean? Regardless of her age, completely selfish and just used people. And I was one victim. But in the end, the moral of the story here is don't be afraid to speak up. One of the lessons I learned in life is that sometimes if you feel a certain way about something, just speak your mind. What do you really have to lose, to be honest, constantly? You know what I mean? It's not about being deceitful either. For example, like in this case, a couple months in, when she started getting needy and she started, demanding things, I should have said, "Look, I'm glad I can help you out, but that's the end of it." You know what I mean? But I never spoke up. I was a chicken shit. I don't know why. I just couldn't speak my mind. It wasn't just with her. It was with other parts of my life too. I wish I could just, stand up for myself sometimes back in the day. Now as an adult, I've learned from my mistakes. But, if you're a kid watching this, don't be disrespectful to people, but don't be afraid to speak your mind. You know what I mean? That's the moral of the story here, and that's what I've learned from this experience is don't hold back. If you're unhappy about something, in the best, most respectful way, express yourself and let people around you know how you feel. Always be true to yourself. You can't go wrong. So, anyway, I'm freezing my ass off out here, and I'm out of water, so that's the end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed these stories. Hopefully I didn't tell the first one before. I don't think I did, but I have a bunch of Storytime videos now, so I really should be checking them and making sure I'm not telling the same freaking stories over and over again. But I'll get back to the old folks home in the near future and tell you more stuff about that. I know people were anxious and waiting for more of those Storytime videos. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy these stories. I would love to hear the input and the feedback, what you think. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you soon.